The Lavender Protocol. The dead never rest in Lavender Town. It wasn't just superstition or ghost stories whispered by children daring each other to enter the Pokémon Tower. No, the truth was far worse. Lavender Town wasn't haunted because of what had died there. It was haunted because of what had been kept alive. The year was 12 PC, post-collapse. The Pokémon League was gone, its champions either dead or missing. Cities had fallen into ruin, swallowed by time and tragedy. But not Lavender Town. Lavender was still standing. Dr. Elise Morano adjusted her oxygen mask as the transport crept through the mist. The fog here was unnatural, thick and cloying, with a faint metallic tang that burned the back of her throat. She was part of a special recon unit dispatched by what remained of the Indigo Coalition, a fragile alliance of scientists and ex-trainers desperate to salvage what was left of civilization. Their mission was simple: investigate the source of an anomalous radio signal detected from Lavender Town. But Elise had read the old reports. She knew about the frequency, the one that had driven people mad back in the early days of the collapse. They'd called it the Lavender Tone, a pitch that wasn't just heard but felt, vibrating deep in the bones, whispering things no one should hear. Now the signal was active again. The vehicle jerked to a halt at the town's edge. The driver, a grizzled ex-ranger named Harlow, glanced at Elise with dead eyes. "We're here. Grab your gear." Elise stepped out into the oppressive silence. The town was a skeleton of its former self. Buildings half-collapsed, windows shattered, doors hanging ajar. But it wasn't abandoned. Shadows flickered just beyond the fog, silent shapes watching with unblinking eyes. Pokémon, but not like any she'd seen before. The team moved in formation toward the Pokémon Tower, a jagged silhouette stabbing into the ashen sky. The closer they got, the stronger the radio interference grew, their comms hissing with distorted whispers. Elise's Geiger counter clicked erratically, not radiation, but something else. Something worse. Inside the tower, the air was thick and cold, vibrating with that faint, ever-present hum. Faded memorial plaques lined the cracked walls, their inscriptions eroded by time. But it wasn't the decay that unsettled Elise. It was the feeling of being watched, not by something living, but by something that should have stayed dead. They found the first body on the 3rd floor. A coalition scout, his eyes wide open, face twisted in an expression of pure terror. But it wasn't fear that had killed him. His skin was grey, almost translucent, veins pulsing faintly with an unnatural glow. His Pokeball was still clasped in his hand, crushed as if he'd tried to hold on until the very end. What the hell happened to him? Harlow whispered, scanning the shadows. Elise didn't answer. She was staring at the wall, where a message had been scrawled in blood. "Protocol Lavender is active. Do not listen." As they ascended, the whispers grew louder, not through their radios, but directly inside their heads. Elise felt them like icy fingers probing her thoughts, pulling memories she hadn't thought about in years. Her father's face. The day the world ended. By the time they reached the top floor, half the team was gone, either dead or lost to the fog. Harlow was shaking, his weapon useless against whatever unseen force was unraveling their minds. At the center of the room was a machine, old, rusted, and still humming with unnatural life. It looked like a radio tower, fused with what remained of Pokémon technology, wires tangled with organic matter, tendrils pulsing like veins. At its core was a containment chamber, cracked but still functional. Inside floated something that had once been a Pokémon, a ghastly, or the echo of one. But it wasn't just a ghost-type Pokémon. It was something else now, its form twisted by years of exposure to the machine's frequencies. Its eyes burned with a sickly violet light, locked in an eternal, silent scream. Elise approached the console, wiping dust from a faded label. Project Lavender Protocol, Psychic Frequency Weaponization. It wasn't an accident. The Pokémon Tower had never been just a memorial. It had been a test site, a place where the League had experimented with weaponizing Pokémon frequencies to control minds, suppress uprisings, even end wars before they began. But they'd lost control. The frequency hadn't just affected Pokémon. It had infected the town itself, embedding into the soil, the fog, the bones of the dead. Everyone who died in Lavender became part of the signal, their consciousness trapped in an endless broadcast of suffering. Harlow snapped, his mind finally fracturing under the pressure. He turned his weapon on Elise, eyes glassy and unfocused. She didn't hesitate. One shot to the chest, and he collapsed beside the others. She approached the console, her mind fraying at the edges. There was no shutting it down. The machine wasn't running anymore. It was alive. But she could still destroy it. With trembling hands, Elise overloaded the power core, setting the system into a catastrophic feedback loop. The whispers became screams, a deafening chorus of voices from beyond the grave. Blood trickled from her nose, her vision blurring. As the explosion ripped through the tower, Elise smiled. Not because she had won, but because, for the first time in years, the voices were finally gone.